Okay, it says
There.
we're live streaming. I'm just going to double check that it's working in the background as it should be. And I believe that we are. So it's good. Okay.
Great. All right. So I'd like to call our meeting to order at 12:06. To begin, I'd like to acknowledge with respect that we're in Robinson Huron Treaty Territory and that the land on which we're gathered is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe and known as Bawat'ing. Bawat'ing is the home of Garden River First Nation, Batchewana First Nation, and the historic Sault Ste. Marie Métis Council. So the first item on the agenda is the adoption of minutes from the previous meeting. Do I have a mover for the minutes? Moved by Rebecca, seconded by, sorry, folks. Let me adjust the screen there. There. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Brenna. All those in favor, please raise your hand or somehow indicate your consent. And the motion carries. Next, we have the declaration of pecuniary interests. So I've declared a conflict on item 5.24.
Sean, if it's okay, I got the list of conflicts here that I could read out.
Sure. Yep.
Item 5.3, Sibley Society, Nyla Moss. 5.6, the Club Community Center, Lee Rendell. 5.8, Over the Rainbow, Larry Whalen. 5.17, Joseph Karganakis, Lee Rendell. 5.20, Nicholas Application, Nyla Moss. 5.23, Sarah Stegan, Lee Rendell. And 5.24, the Sioux Pottersfield, Sean Vetus. And if there are any others that we've missed, of course, now is a good time to mention that.
Going once, twice. And that's our conflicts for today. All right. Next, we have the adoption of the agenda. Could I have a mover for the agenda?
Actually, Sean, sorry, I've got an amendment to make.
Sure.
Just a quick change in verbiage. Item 6.1, ACAP process review task force. It will be a subcommittee, not a task force.
Great.
And that's all.
So, do we have a mover with the amendment? Moved by Brenna, seconded by Rebecca. All those in favor, please indicate your agreement by raising your hand or otherwise. And the motion carries. All right. Sorry, let me just adjust my view here. There we go. So the next item on the agenda is the business arising. We have covered items 5.1 through to 5.18. So we're on to item 5.19. Let me gather my notes here. So item 5.19 is an application by Michael Natham for $2,999 in the Small Projects Grant Fund for a project named Creaturehood. This project is a series of 5 minimum short films, 30 seconds to 2 minutes each, that are part of an edutainment video series. You may recognize this as a resubmission from the earlier intake. So this was not originally funded previously, but has come back with revisions. So they are hosted and narrated by an animal moose of the applicant's creation, voiced by Michael Natham, and accompanied by various motion graphics and animation. Each video's topic is a resolution of understanding of our place on the tree of life, the earth, the universe, and existence. It will be told with wit and humor, and with an eye toward how our future as a species depends on greater cooperation and understanding of ourselves. The videos will be posted on YouTube, Vimeo, and a separate website. Postcards, links, and posters will be distributed. The age demographics range from 19 to 59 years old, and they selected an audience of over 2,500 people. So to start us off, the order that I have everyone sitting in today, based on who's able to speak today, we have Brenna, then Lee, then Larry, then Rebecca, and of course we'll rotate with each new application that we discuss. So to start off, Brenna, impressions on Creaturehood.
I've been a big fan of this project since the start, kind of like an individual writing project. That's a little bit of a celebration, these 30-minute or 30-second shorts that are kind of like jingle videos and things like that that can be used and eventually operated through TVO or through the city and things like that. So I've been a big fan of this project. I think it's a really great thing for the individual to take on. I'm glad to see that they're continuing. So they did create the written aspect and now they're moving on to the animated part. So if we can support that project further, I think that's wonderful. And I say keep going. That's an awesome little project that he's got going.
Thanks, Brenna. Lee.
So overall, yeah, I thought this was a really interesting project. My only outstanding question that I had is it really wasn't clear from the application or the reference materials provided that this person lived locally or it was going to be necessarily local. I saw lots of reference to northern and north, but I didn't see any clarity on that front as that they were located in the community. So I had trouble kind of assessing what that community impact would be, because what kind of community are we talking about? Are we talking about all of Canada? Are we talking about Ontario, Northern Ontario, the Sioux? I appreciate that it will be online, but it wasn't clear to me about that one particular aspect. I don't know if anyone else had insights into that.
I think that's a worthwhile question to defer to Alicia. Do you have information there, Alicia?
I do, this applicant, to my knowledge, it's from Sault Ste. Marie. I was gonna say that without sounding terrible, I went to high school with them, so. But beyond that, I was gonna say without too much information there, I was gonna say that they are now back in Sault Ste. Marie. I think they spent some time away. I think it might be indicated maybe on their CV about their time away based on their projects. But this person is now currently back in Sault Ste. Marie.
Thanks. Larry, you're next on the list, so we'll, unless I just want to
Okay.
check in that Lee's done. Yep, Larry, go ahead.
Yeah, I read somewhere in there that he's focusing these films will focus on the Sioux and Northern Ontario, and he's seeking consultation from local people and in particular Indigenous sources. I thought this was a very interesting, creative, well thought out, and unique application. He knows what he wants to do and how. So I thought it's one of the better applications I've read.
Thanks, Larry. Last but not least, Rebecca.
Thanks. So I thought that the author of the grant application has a strong history of project management. I was very impressed by their resume and other creations that they have done over the years. They did discuss raising other funds through Patron. They discussed compensation of other collaborators, which I thought was a plus. Strong history of clear and compelling achievements. My only questions was that there was some imprecision, I thought at least, in some of the impacts that they were hoping for. So if there could be more measurable impacts, that would have been of interest to me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rebecca. Any changes to scores based on the conversation?
Yes, I have an updated score. How do I get that over to Alicia?
You can you can say it and
Perfect.
we'll make the adjustment, or you can email it to her directly if you want a sort of written record.
I'll email right now.
Okay,
In the
great.
short term, I was gonna say that if you wanted to add it to the chat and send it directly to Sean, he can update the spreadsheet.
Right. Yes. And just because I am not good at multitasking, I will make a note to do that when we get to the point in the agenda where we actually move things around here. So please remind me to do that when that time comes. And I see Nyla's joined us. Just wanted to check in, Nyla. you want to contribute to the conversation on Mike Natham's application for item 5.19, or did you want to just wait until the next one?
Yeah, so sorry that I'm late.
No worries.
I did find it to be an interesting application. I won't add too much because I know the discussions happened. I did submit my scores. I thought it was interesting that there was the educational entertainment component to it, and that was reflected in my scores. And yeah, I think I'll kind of voice in more a little bit on the next one coming up, which I will be out of the room for, but the one after that. So thank you.
Great. Awesome. So next item, we have item 5.19, sorry, 5.20, which is Nicholas Luck. And we're going to, Nyla has declared a conflict in relation to this one, so we'll move Nyla into a room. That's done. Thank you. So for this applicant, Nicholas Luck is requesting $2,999 for a small project grant, music recordings distribution, and community engagement project. The project is to record and distribute original works by Nicholas Luck. The works include a Sault Ste. Marie Downtown jingle, as well as an EP of songs. The works would be recorded at the Loft Studio at the Conservatory, and local musicians will be contracted, and the music will be recorded and mixed at the Loft. A video and complementary content will be prepared to assist in the promotion of the project. The applicant has selected audiences that are local from the region, international, and including tourists. The project will be promoted on the applicant's social media accounts and website, on the video distribution websites, and through the Algoma Conservatory of Music's social media accounts and website. Additional media releases will complement the performance announcements as well as release announcements, and the Downtown Jingle will also be promoted via community and provincial organizations. Age demographics include all available options, and they've selected 2,500 plus as an estimated audience. Rebecca, would you like to begin?
Sure, thanks. So I thought that this musician obviously has a strong talent, strong history in the art. They had a compelling idea to create a Main Street jingle. Overall, I thought it was a strong application with the caveat that I thought it would have been helpful to see more collaborative evidence of some kind about if we're to create a Main Street jingle, if there was any community discussion or community influences on that and how those would have been sourced. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. Larry.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. We don't have a lot of composers and songwriters here who, in Sault Ste. Marie, you know, that are working and really doing that. So I found that part encouraging and interesting. I did think that it was very ambitious and that it was a bit unfocused or maybe a bit too generalized or scattered. He wants to do an awful lot. He's cramming everything in there with songs from other people and other, you know, that was the concern I had.
Thanks, Larry. Lee.
Overall, I really enjoyed this submission because I thought it had a really interesting combination of utilizing his own artistry and collaborating with other local organizations and artists to pull this off for community good if they're looking at kind of a downtown jingle. I do agree that I think a little bit more focus would have been really wise. I think just the jingle aspect in and of itself would have been enough of a project to support. I think the scope, maybe the intent was trying to make it more, to feel like he could do more with the money, but overall, I just tried to view it through the lens of, okay, if it's just the jingle and this one project was pulled off, what would that do? What would that mean? So I thought that was really great from that context.
Thanks, Lee. And Brenna.
Yeah, I'd agree with the discussion so far. I thought it was really neat, and I think it's a very talented artist who's going, that's been, that's trying to hone his work into something that you know, is usable and makes some more sense than just what they're personally doing on their own. And I think that making a downtown jingle is a very smart thing to do, or to create work that with even without the initial connection can be used in the future or used eventually. Might not have any data on that, but I've been here a long time and it's been a while since the station mall was the center of it all, I guess, as a jingle. So coming about that on his own, that's super cool. It seems like a very talented artist, and hopefully they can like streamline into that kind of project where, they see a need and they fill a need, and I think that's a smart way to go about it. So if they can streamline this project into some kind of offering like that, it's a really great idea. It's a really talented artist. I think they'd be able to pull that off.
Thanks, Brenna. Any changes to scores based on discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to item 5.21, and we will welcome back Nyla.
Okay, Nyla should be back by now. Nice.
Wonderful. And we'll put her on the speakers list after Rebecca. So the next item on the agenda is for Rebecca Heron, who's requesting $2,999 for a small project grant called the Sharing Game. The applicant will be creating a romance/sci-fi experimental film about a man and a woman who enter the lab through separate doors. They sit face to face and answer a series of increasingly personal questions, and they stare silently into each other's eyes for 4 minutes. 6 months later, the participants are married. The applicant will work with local actors, local film and theater crews. Post-team will be done with Parker Pictures, and all costs will be spent in the Sioux. By creating this project, the applicant indicates that they will be able to further hone their skills as a writer, director, and build more of their portfolio in the young adult/adult content. The applicant has selected audiences that are local from the region and include online audience members to expand the geographic reach. Promotion will occur through their professional website, as well as the team's social media platforms. Additionally, a poster in preparation with student graphic designers will be created. We'll also engage local media, Sioux Today, the Sioux Star, with combination of press releases, paid ads, and news stories. They'll also submit to film festivals to expand the audience reach. No age demographics were indicated specifically, and there was no estimated attendance or viewership provided. Starting off, I have Brenna for the discussion.
I love this application. I've seen the TED Talks and the different things. So I like a psychological thriller where you can't decide whether it's one or the other, whether it's good or best. Does it save marriages? Does it do this? Is it coercive? Those kinds of questions are all really great material for a really great script. So I think it's super interesting, and from what I've seen in the application, it's fairly low budget. It can be done fairly clearly, and they have a lot of experience in doing things like that. So I thought it was a pretty great application.
Thanks, Brenna. Lee.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I thought that was a great application as well. I didn't have many questions. I thought it was really interesting content. And I liked all of the backup information. I thought there was a lot of showcasing of the ability to manage this project, including a direct quote. And I guess my only concern would be whether or not the amount that was allocated to the small budget, small project funding, which is, I believe, the $299.99, and the fact that we'll likely only be awarding fractions of those amounts, given the remaining budget of the ACAP funding, and that ACAP was such a large portion of kind of the ability to pull this off. That was my only concern, but we've addressed that in past meetings about how Usually, that's just the way it goes. So yeah, overall, I was really impressed.
Thanks, Lee. Larry.
Yeah, this is she struck me as a very quite experienced in filmmaking, and she knows what she wants to do. She wants to challenge stereotypes and affect social change. I think that's common to many filmmakers, and I thought she demonstrated the benefit to her personally in honing her skills, the benefits of to people in the Sioux who are interested in the various aspects of filmmaking to participate, and she intends to take it abroad. Even she's going to show it in TIFF, and she lists other examples. And by the way, she's been recognized by awards. So I thought this was a pretty strong application. The budget was $24,000 almost. She doesn't say where the rest of the money is going to come from, but I think that's a common problem in this scheme.
Thanks, Larry. Rebecca.
Yeah, I found this application inspirational just due to the large volume of work that the artist has already created. I trusted them immediately, just sort of looking over all the different credits and all of the technical accolades. And so I definitely gave it high scores, and I wish them luck. Thank you.
Thanks, Rebecca. Nyla.
I also like this application, and just to echo what most people have said, I found on my rubric scoring very highly for proof of past success, looking at the different projects and the awards, and even just kind of picking up on the knowledge that came through in the plan for the project. And also interesting to see how she was planning to connect with certain people. She mentions newcomers and students and grads, and that was interesting to see as well, that this opportunity would be an opportunity for them, but also an opportunity maybe for other people in the community. So I also scored it well, specifically in those areas.
Thanks, Nyla. Any changes to score based on conversation?
I just found a typo in my score when I was reviewing my documents. I'll be sending that over to you, Sean.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. That's in 5.21. Great. All right. Next, we have an application from Riley Greco, item 5.22. Riley Greco is a female entrepreneur, florist, and visual artist based in Northern Ontario, and Sault Ste. Marie in particular. The proposed project is to create an immersive week-long floral installation that will take place alongside Summer Moon Festival. The idea for this project is to create an installation that can be enjoyed at any age. The proposed project will take place over the duration of 1 week from the 1st of October to the 7th of October at the Downtown Plaza building. Throughout the creation and installation of this work, the public is invited to come and watch the installation take shape, as well as take part in scheduled workshops that are aimed to spark creativity in making floral art using natural materials. The applicant has selected audiences that are local from the region and include tourists. The proposed project will be promoted through a variety of channels, including established professional networks, websites, and social media accounts. The event will also be shared amongst the local Facebook and horticultural clubs, as well as nursing homes and senior centers, ADSB, Huron-Superior Catholic District School Board, the Community Hub and Downtown Association. In the lead up to the project, there will be paid social ads that will be directed locally, regionally, as far as 80 kilometers, and across the border to Sioux, Michigan. Local news sites such as Sioux Today, the Sioux Star, Shaw TV, and CTV Northern Ontario will also be contacted with a press release on the event. Age demographics include all selected options, and they've selected between 1,000 and 2,500 as estimated audiences or viewers of activities and events. I'd like to open the discussion with Nyla. Is it Nyla's turn? Yes, it's Nyla's turn.
I thought this application was really interesting. I liked especially the list of different groups that were going to be engaged. I thought it was thoughtful. I especially noted the mention of Clean North, taking care of flowers, kind of, considering what happens after the installation. I thought it had a really clear goal as far as 1,000 viewers and the plan to, it wasn't exactly clear if it would be like a survey or some other way. At least I don't have in my notes how they're going to count, but it seemed like there was some plan to come up with a report after defining how many viewers, and the goal was clear. And yeah, to see kind of a reflection, I guess, in multiple applications of seeing that downtown plaza as a potential space for art, and culture activation was interesting. So I thought this was, it'd be something, yeah, beautiful to see, obviously. And I think she showed also, having the past experience with the floral arrangements. And so I marked it accordingly.
Thanks, Nyla. Rebecca.
So I thought it was a great application. The word that came to mind is pleasant. Like it just sounded like a very wonderful experience for the community. I wanted to go. Like I wanted to go to this immersive experience. As she appears to have past projects, she appears skilled to take on this project as designed. I was interested if there was maybe this was just me asking this, but is there some sort of message or theme that she was interested to convey? Maybe that was in there and I didn't see it. That was something that was interested in me just as a collaboration with the community. I gave us very high scores. Thank you.
Thanks, Rebecca. Larry.
Yeah, I'd never thought of a floral arrangement as art in in the sense of what we are looking at, but why not? It's very interesting. It's been well thought out. The location, the change room in the plaza downtown. There's going to be some pizzazz in the plaza. And that's going to assure a lot of people are going to see it because it's also going to be during or part of the Summer Moon Festival. And you can bet that the downtown merchants and all of those people will be doing something special. So I'm sure it's going to be seen. I would like also to have had an example or maybe a picture of something like this she's done before, or some idea of what the theme would be. But I think this lady knows what she's doing.
Thanks, Larry. Lee.
I really,
You requested that. Sorry. Go ahead.
okay, are we good?
Yeah.
Okay. I really love this application. I love the interesting kind of performance art aspect to it. It's applications like this that make me really excited to be a part of this committee because I thought it was really creative. It leveraged existing community events. It had a lot of kind of potential for proliferation through social media and engagement because it only lasts a few days. It's a floral arrangement. And I think we don't see enough of these types of kind of alternative performance art exhibitions enough. So the fact that it's linked to the Moon Festival, I think that's perfect to really get people engaging with it. So I thought it was fabulous. I loved every aspect of this. And there are photos, I don't know if you saw them, Larry, but there are some photos at the end of the application, some inspiration photos, as well as some photos of different community work that she's done in arrangements. So
Thanks, Lee. Brenda.
I'm a huge fan of this application. This isn't a new field for Ms. Greco. Has a long history of working as an artist and being very good at what she does. She reminds me of like a Georgia O'Keeffe with like a Hilma Clint type of methodology. So it's kind of like trust the vision and it just unfolds on its own, and whatever is in her mind to create for us is probably going to be the coolest living architecture that we've seen in a long time. But I think it's a wonderful project. I think that they have experience working with the material that they're working with. They know how to pull it off. They have a great vision. They have experience and merit as an artist. They have everything that we endorse in these projects with the connection with the downtown. So I was super excited. This is one of the strongest applications I've seen from an artist so far. So I just wanted to be like 5 stars on that. They're actively involved in everything in Sault Ste. Marie, and they have a great vision. And you can really see where that is. So I would trust the process with this one, and 2 thumbs up on that application.
Thanks, Brenna. Any changes to scores based on the discussion? Seeing none, we'll move on to item 5.23. Lee Rendell has declared a conflict in relation to this one, so we'll say so long for now to Lee. And this comes from Sarah Skagen, who is requesting $2,750 for a small project grant for a performance piece titled I Love You, You're Nothing. The applicant is applying to support the development and delivery of a performance focused on intimate partner violence, recognizing it is a current issue that plagues our society with negative impacts. Often the victims' voices in such scenarios are silenced due to the requirement to maintain anonymity. So during Fringe North 2024, a piece will be performed that is written by the applicant and performed by other community members in an effort to give these victims back their voices and to demonstrate to the community the impacts that intimate partner violence has on our society. Victims' stories will be told in a safe yet truthful way that will empower them, but maintain their anonymity, and at least one mental health support will be available for the cast at all times. The applicant has selected audiences that are local and indicated that Fringe North is promoted as a tourism event. Printed posters will be delivered throughout the community. Promotion will also be done through the Fringe website, podcasts, and through their personal social media pages. They will also utilize Sioux Today's event section, as well as advertisements in Sioux Now and other opportunities as they present themselves. Demographics include mature youth and adults of all ages, and they've selected between 100 and 250 in estimated audiences or viewers of activities and events. So we will start discussion with Brenna.
I think this is a great project that has a lot of deep down meaning that is very good to bring to the front. I think it's important to ensure anonymity on both the side of the victim and the perpetrator in these instances, and ensure that everything is written properly and done in that way and clarified in a way that we're not perpetrating any more harassment. Also, in terms of support, if you're gonna if there's a potential for a trigger warning at the start of a performance like this, it might be necessary to have the offboarding support for the audience. So as much as there's mental health support for the castmates and things like that, a lot of times when there's something that you go through that has like a trigger warning on it, at the end there will be resources made available for the audience, or clarified what resources are available to them to support them with that experience as well. So just to make sure that they've covered all their bases logistically, it's one of the more difficult things to cover. So it's just one of those things that needs to be made sure that you've got it on lock. So I think it's a great program, but it's one of those ones that you want to really make sure that what's written is appropriate, that it's directed and it's anonymous, and it takes its role so that it can really have the impact that you're hoping that it has. But I think it's a really important project.
Thanks, Brenna. Larry.
I don't have any comments. Thank you.
Thanks, Larry. Rebecca.
So reading this, I was I agree that I think with Brenna, that's a very important project, especially due to recent events in the Sioux related to intimate partner violence. I think there's certainly space for this dialogue. I guess the only question I had was that there was spoken about that there would be a variety of supports there, mental health, social work, and things, and people like that. And I just wondered if there was any intent to compensate them. I don't recall seeing that. So I think that was the only question that I had. I do think it's a distinctive and interesting activity, very relevant, with the safeguards that were mentioned. Thank you.
Thanks, Rebecca. Nyla.
I had similar comments. To some of the other people have already put forward theirs. I think the only one that I had that was extra was I just made a note that she said it was her first time writing a show, and I just put beside it that I thought that was like exciting and worth noting. Someone she didn't specifically say, or I don't have it in my notes, whether she had written maybe something smaller or contributed in some way to something else. So I don't know if this is a big first step or like a gradual next step, but I thought that was worth noting, and I put that in my notes at the bottom of my rubric. But otherwise, just the same, relevant, like always relevant, but I think especially top of mind now, and it's kind of she puts that in her application as well. And also just, kind of in a way also supporting Fringe Festival, which is really important for the Sioux in helping possibly create this additional piece that would be able to be seen by the public. And those were my notes when I was reading the application.
Thanks, Nyla. Any comments or changes to scores based on the discussion so far? Seeing none, we will progress to the next application, for which I've declared a conflict. So I'm going to leave you, and Lee will come back. And our vice chair is not present, so I will leave it in the capable hands of Alicia. And I'll see you in a bit.
I'll just give a moment. Lee is back. And Sean's going to be removed. Okay, Sean is gone. So here we are. So the Sioux Potters Guild, they're applying for a small project grant of $1,561.38 in support of an air purifier system installation. The Sioux Potters Guild is an evolving group of local ceramic artists established in 1969. They support environmental learning and volunteering, and have historically offered classes and workshops at various skill levels. Their work typically supports hand building and wheel throwing ceramic art and pottery, as well as glaze making and kiln operations. Within this application, the group seeks a new air purifying system to assist in the removal of high levels of respiratory carcinogens as a result of the art that they create. Through the installation of this equipment, the group hopes to in turn offer more programming opportunities to community members. They've selected audiences that are local from the region and often include tourists. They plan to promote upcoming programming through social media announcements and open house style events. Their age demographics are 0 to 75 plus. And they selected 101 to 250 estimated audiences and viewers for their activities and events. I don't have the right rotation written down, so who would like to start? Oh, sorry, go ahead, please.
I can start.
Okay, thanks, Larry.
I think this is an important application, and I wish we could give them every penny. Because they're an important part of our arts infrastructure in Sault Ste. Marie, and what they're asking for has impact on a lot of other artists. And I just think I just like to say, here's the money you asked for. It's well put, it's well articulated, and how they're going to spend the money is shown, and I don't think there's much else to say.
Thank you, Larry. Nyla?
Yeah, I agree a lot with the sentiment. I think very long standing in the community. Obviously, the rubric a lot dealing with cultural and like art and those kind of goals, but hard to put a rating on safety. I think it's really clear that this is something that they need, and they kind of touched on how maybe it could help expand to people who maybe are limited from attending now because they're more vulnerable to respiratory illnesses or irritants. So I rated it high, and especially I think in the reflection that this seems to be like a necessary thing, especially for some people maybe who want to go and aren't able to go right now due to the air quality. And then obviously, you know, you have people who've been going for years and years, and I'm sure they'd like to see something like this implemented as well, just because of the long-lasting effects of those kind of particles in the air. So yeah, and I also echo Larry's sentiments about their spot in our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Brenna?
Yeah, definitely echo what everyone else has said. It's for a cost that's kind of above and beyond what their regular things are, but it needs to be done. I don't know many places that people could access kilns and things like that. So it's something that we definitely want to have and keep going. It's a great application.
Thank you. Rebecca or Lee?
Oh, this is Rebecca. I just wanted to say I thought it was a very strong application, very viable and necessary. Thanks.
Thank you. And Lee, if you have any comments?
I think it's just echoing what everyone has already shared.
Excellent, thank you. I'm gonna bring Sean back in, just for transparency's sake, because we don't have the spreadsheet pulled up on shared the screen here. Their current ranking is at 13.76. Are there any changes to scores that we should note moving forward? Okay, I'm going to bring Sean back in. Thank you. Welcome back.
Hello. All right, so we are at 12:47. I just want to do a time check because we are expected to end at 1 o'clock. But between discussing final allotment and any other agenda items, we might go over that if we continue to have quorum beyond 1 o'clock, but is that even possible? So putting it out there, who is not able to stick around beyond 1 o'clock? Nyla, great. Okay, do we lose anybody else?
It looks like we should be okay to continue then.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, do I need to make any changes to the? Okay, so I took that opportunity to make the changes that were necessary to the score sheet. And I'm just in the process of populating this sheet with our current totals, and Alicia, could I ask you for what the amount that we can distribute is?
I was literally just saying, great. Okay, so our number that we have today is 26,100.
26. Oh,
Oh,
Yeah.
man.
this is going to be a tough one, folks.
Perhaps when we get started, when you have a moment there, we should start talking about thresholds again.
Right.
And that might be a good place to start, because of course, they're all great applications, and like you said, it'll be difficult.
So all right, so our initial threshold is 60%, which requires scores of 9 out of 15, for which we've already removed any of those prior to any discussion. And then from there, what we typically do is the same proportion of that overall 15 that an applicant receives. We say we fix the equivalent amount of their funding request, right? So they get I'll share my screen here so that this will not be hypothetical. So as we see in this scenario, Sioux Film Festival, which with a score of 13.22 out of 15, their total request was 10,000 for which they were eligible, and that would put them at an award of $8,813. However, combining all of our projects that way, we would need $156,324. Brenna.
If we took the top 2 in each category, would we even be close to being able to afford that? Like, even if we, I'm just looking, even in the, can
The
we
answer is no.
afford a large project grant on the second round, or is it only going to be that?
Yeah, to answer your question, unfortunately, there are some, particularly the large projects, they exceed the 26,000 that we have, right? So even this, request from Musical Comedy Guild is for 40,000, and we only have the 26,000 to distribute.
It's embarrassing.
Yep.
It's unfair that we have so many wonderful projects and so limited funds to fund them.
Yeah.
We want
And that's
spaces
also a very,
activated.
sorry, continue, sorry.
No, we want spaces activated, so this is how we get activation in a lot of those spaces, right? Is by investing in our local groups and our nonprofits and our volunteers.
Mhm.
So it's really important for us to be able to fund these programs. So 6,000, that puts us at one, like, let's just say we took the top 2 in each category, because even if we raise the threshold, that's where we're going to end up, right?
Mhm.
I'm just curious how underfunded we really are.
So that would be, let's see. Oops, sorry, this is what happens when I use formulae.
Thank you for using formulas. Thank you for having a great command of this spreadsheet.
No problem. I think part of the problem with the top 2 in each category is that we actually have a lot of categories that only have 2 or 3. But I'll certainly try.
Well, basic math would suggest we have 24 qualified applicants here and only $26,000 to give out. So in hypothetical land, we give every single project $1,000, and that would be everything.
Right.
Does
Which is
anyone
really disappointing?
Another suggestion other than trying to take the tops in each category? I guess we have way more categories than I thought. I thought maybe we could, no, we can't. Sorry. Any other suggestions? I'm on board.
Do we know what our allotment is for the coming year?
At this point, it stands to reason that that'll be $104,400 as typical.
And has it been approved?
Oh, no, budget happens in November, December. So we won't have that information until later. And so
Okay.
moving forward into ACAP early intake 2025, should we proceed in that fashion? We're looking at $78,300 at that time.
So we have to wait until they strike the next budget, city budget.
Is that something we can ask Angela to take note of from her attendance here? Just
Hi. Yeah, I can take note of it. Absolutely. I will say, if the funding seems inadequate, perhaps, sorry, it's just really loud in here. Let me move. If the funding seems inadequate, there is always room for someone from the committee to come to the budget meeting and speak on behalf of the committee. But quite honestly, like if you want my council answer, at budget time, everyone is complaining about their taxes going up, and you guys know how it is. You read it, you hear it. And unfortunately, the arts seem to be the last place that money is going. We do have counselors that are try and push for more money to be put into the arts. But it's a hard sell. Six people around the horn have to agree. So absolutely, like if you think you have a compelling case to something to say to council to try and sway, those 6 people. Sean's always a great speaker. I'm sure he would volunteer as tribute to speak to council. But quite honestly, like if you just have me, then you got 1 out of 11, and that's really it. And I just to be clear, I don't think that this council is like against the arts. It's just once we start putting the dollars and cents together, everybody's pockets get really pinched because people around the community get really upset about taxes.
Right. What I understand this to be is more of like a repurposing, activating spaces, trying to get some of that tourism, recreation budget that seems to be massive, and trying to repurpose it into not just the arts, but like all of our nonprofit, volunteer run, activating spaces, everything that runs in Rotary, everything that supports everything else that goes on in the city.
I agree with you. I agree with you 100%. And I think like any time, 11 months of the year, the other 10 people on council will agree with you. But once December hits and that budget has to go, people are like, how do we find cuts? Where do we, everybody's sort of at your throat. I think it's important to make those things heard though, that, for me personally, folks always talk about like, how do we help out like the opioid issue and folks being around the downtown area with addiction issues, and sometimes it's just activating space and bringing folks down there. And so this is like you're singing my song and dance, Brenna. So I'm with you.
I'm just going to intervene here. I see a lot of hands up, and I know this is a really rich discussion. I really hesitate to diverge from it, but I think we have to, because fundamentally right now we only have the 26,100 to distribute, and already we're quite delayed in pulling together our process to bring the recommendation forward to council for the allotment that we already have. So if I could, I see some hands up. If it's about how we proceed with this money, please keep your hands up. Otherwise, I'd request that we save those discussions for another day.
Just send me an email or a text or whatever if you want to talk about the other thing.
Thanks, Angela. Lee.
Yeah, I think if we go back to the actual cultural plan, and we use that as the basis for making this decision on what to fund, and agreeing on, I believe there's 2 ways we can go. We can either try to fully and majoritarily fund some of the highest impact or highest rated projects that we see on this, that we believe are going to impact the most people, and just go by sheer ratings themselves. Or we could go back to that plan and look at, okay, we're looking at funding 1 heritage project, we're looking at funding 1 LGBTQ project, we're looking at funding 1 Indigenous project, we're looking at funding 1 music project, 1 art, 1 performance art, and just do what we can in the best of those categories. And then the third option, which I believe will be the most diplomatic, but likely the least effective, because I don't know if all of these projects could do that, is if what I said earlier, we just hand everyone that qualified $1,000. So I think we need to kind of decide how we want to approach this. And I would recommend one of those three ways, and we just agree on a way, and then we move forward from there.
Thanks, Lee. Are there any other comments on that?
I didn't score everything, but if I could just say, I agree with what Lee said wholeheartedly. And if it was me getting a vote to figure out which way this committee was going to go, I would personally like to find the project that I think could affect the most change, rather than just giving out small amounts where, you know, being diplomatic, as Lee put it. So I'll just leave that there.
Thanks, Angela. One thing that I would just to chime in, I like the focus on impact as well. I think in that case, what we'll need to do is reconvene after taking a look at those documents, just because we don't have, I mean, I can share them quickly, but you wouldn't have time to go through them in today's session. Now, that's not unusual for us to have a different meeting. I don't know if there's any other consideration that you want to add there, Alicia, but that would be my recommendation for how to approach that particular option.
I don't have anything further to say.
Yeah, so if it's the will of the committee, then we can do that and have a more robust conversation about those criteria, where you're not under pressure of like, oh, I got to get out of here in 15 minutes, right? Is that something that people are agreeable to? Larry?
The largest one there is the Comedy Guild. May I suggest that if we're going to reconvene, maybe you could ask for a statement of how they did with their latest show, the revenues and so on, so we can assess needs. It was Legally Blonde, I think.
This sounds harsh, Larry, but I don't think more information would be helpful at this point. I think we have a plethora of information, and we have to look at everything as a whole. We're in macro now. We've gone through the micro. We have the scores. We have the funding requests. We know roughly what it's for. And I personally just don't believe more information would be helpful. We have to actually start like picking and choosing here. And this is really tough, but it's something that we have to do.
What if they made $50,000 or $60,000 in there with Legally Blonde?
I'm just going to interrupt just to say that any member who requests a different additional information, we will get that for you. But it's not obligatory for others. Rebecca?
Thanks. So when I'm listening to this discussion, I'll just be honest, I came in under the impression that we had $10,000 to allot. So I was clearly mistaken. So hearing 26, I was pleasantly surprised. Just looking at the rubric that we were provided to assess these applications, there were 3 dimensions: the viability of project activity, the artistic and cultural merit, and the community impact. So my only question is it being funneled down now to merely community impact, and how we would go about assessing something that diaphanous? Because I'm not sure how that could be assessed, given that these are predictive applications, they haven't occurred yet. And so my personal take on it is that we have used the rubrics. I believe all of us have used them as given to provide the numeric values for each of these applications. And I feel that given the numeric values that we assign to them, that those could be part of our guide. Thank you.
Oh,
Thanks,
sorry.
Rebecca. Alicia has some clarifying information, I believe.
No, I wanted to bring something forward. I just wanted to be clear that some of these activities have already started to take place. I know that the process to get to this point in time has been lengthy, and we've had 4 meetings previously this, and I certainly don't want to rush us. But I also recognize that some of these activities will take place now or in July and August. And the sooner that we can make our decision, fortunately, we can funnel that information, our recommendations to council, and that will also take a couple of weeks' time, and then time for those checks then to be distributed. So at this point in time, if we're able to make, come to a determination as a group, how we'd like to proceed, I would like to pursue that option, but I also really don't want to rush the conversation if that's not how everybody else feels.
Thanks, Alicia. Nyla? And then I think Brenna had her hand up, but
I just wanted to say that I agree with Rebecca. I don't want to change anything maybe that's been established through like tradition as far as the committee meeting of looking at these grants kind of separately in their own streams. I could see where that would make a lot of sense if there was budget allocated to each stream, maybe more at the beginning. I also, you know, if I had to guess at the beginning, would have thought that we were using our overall rubric numbers and kind of applying it generally to all of them as one group, and that really like that the streams were just determining how much they could apply for and maybe what information they had to provide if they were incorporated or unincorporated, but that ultimately maybe we'd be looking at the top 4, 5 just overall of our average scores, and then maybe going from there. Obviously we had really good applications because, and I can't see entirely, but you know, when we cut off at 9, I don't think we lost a ton. I don't think I rated you know, too many people under, or sorry, applications under that level. But I agree with Rebecca of using our scores, just what we kind of have come up with as a group, comparing them all side by side.
What I'll do, oops, sorry. Let me redo this. I've just rearranged the scores in order of highest to lowest. So to Nyla's point, I do want to provide some clarification. The streams up to now have largely just guided how much they can apply for. There isn't separate pots of funding for large versus small versus, you know, and I think that's something that might be a big topic of conversation in reviewing the process. I see Alicia has a hand up, so chances are you have more insight.
Sorry, I don't know if it's super relevant at this time as we're gonna try and dig down now. But part of the reason why funding, like dollars, weren't allocated to those specific funding pots was that in case they weren't fulfilled, we weren't then able to lose that money back into the greater budget if it wasn't allocated elsewhere. So there is one pot with separate headings, again, like you said, guiding the amounts that can be applied for, but ultimately to benefit the community as a whole so that there are no funds lost if they're not allocated within those categories, so to speak, if that makes sense.
Interesting. Yes. And then I see Brenda's hand, and then Lee put a question in the chat that I can answer.
Yeah, no, I was going to comment kind of in general as well as on Lee's. When we do the threshold, we take down the bottom ones, and because our funding was so low, that's why I suggested just taking the top ones, because I thought if we incrementally just increase the threshold, that's what we'd end up with anyway, given the funding we have. So that's why I went the opposite way to take the top 2. But if we increase the threshold and keep going, we're going to be left with the top ones again. But it might, yeah, we're probably just going to be left with like the top 2 or top 1 to fund. But I agree with Nyla on the fact that I scored them all individually in that way, that they should be able to be tried against each other in that way.
Thanks, Brenna. And then I see Nyla, then Lee, just answering Lee's question, which I think Brenna also has, but just to affirm that, yes, we can essentially narrow the field, and that's the way it's been done in the past. Is essentially a combination of raising the threshold, so anything below, let's say, 12 gets dropped off, and then also decreasing the proportion that is funded as well. So those have been the historic approaches. Nyla?
I guess sorry, my question's kind of morphed a little bit because I was kind of going to say similarly, besides the very large application, which I mean, I see why it is so large of Musical Comedy Guild. It seems like if we rounded down to the nearest-ish thousand, that we could fund the projects that scored 13 or higher, again, this is kind of dealing with the request of Musical Comedy Guild entirely separately in my mind. If we were trying to get things, you know, moving, I was wondering if we could do the pre-work of coming up with a policy of, you know, we have these 4 people we reach out to, we say we can only give you a certain percentage, can you still move forward? And then can we predetermine if they say yes versus if they say no, so that we're not back trying to just decide. Sorry, a bunch of balloons come up on Greta. We're not coming back trying to decide, oh, they said no, but we can kind of decide that ahead of time. I can only imagine that even if Musical Comedy Guild, if we go by the top ones, they'll obviously be in there. They're the top 3, but we don't have $40,000. So, or whatever the total is. Sorry, it's small on my screen. But how? Yeah, what's the backup plan, and how much are we offering them percentage wise? And then if they come back and say no, we can't do it, then coming up with a plan of what we're doing with those funds after.
Also, I think it means we fund 0 emerging artists if we do that.
And that's where my concern comes in, is it's very easy when you ask for more money and you're a bigger organization to get higher scores overall, because you have like bigger kind of financial impact documents. You can reach more. Like, all of that is wonderful and great, but also these larger organizations have other resources to apply for funding. I would be I'd feel extremely uncomfortable if we just went with the top and said, okay, all of you larger organizations get this money now to do these bigger projects, and you get fully what you asked for. I think instead, when you look at the quantity of the applications, the amount of change that we could commit, I think we should commit a percentage funding possibly to each category, and then drop the weighting off from there and the funding off from there. Because I think if you just blanket and go by score only, then it's automatically biased towards larger groups with more financial history and with more resources.
I see Brenna, then Larry, but I just want to interject to let folks know that in the past, one thing we have done is reserve not for every single category, but we've actually made a special exception for the small projects, right? So we've treated that differently than all of the others. And that might be something that might be a bit more practical in this case, given we have a bunch of categories that have, you know, sometimes 1 or 2 applicants.
Yeah, I wonder if we separated those small project grants from the larger project grants and then took the higher scores from each of those to make sure that at least those 2 categories are met.
We can do that. Give me a minute to undo what I've done here and to map out what that would look like for the small project grants.
Hi, I had a question whether the cultural diversity, the community events grants, are those under the banner of the small project grants?
Uh,
Not officially.
Are they the same or they're different?
Not speak to that, if you don't mind, Sean, while you're busy. Sorry.
yeah, you go for it.
No problem. Technically speaking, community events grants are technically under the festival and events grants heading. And so are major cultural celebrations, as are cultural diversity. So again, they're different streams within a larger umbrella, each of these. Yes, sorry, that's all I can say.
Yeah, so my thought was, I wonder if we could consider taking the highest score from each of the different umbrellas that we've scored over the past few months. The cultural diversity grants, for instance, or the community events grants. I just wanted to put that out there. Thank you.
I think one of those difficulties that I find or that I run into is that all of those festivals, there is also a stream from the tourism department that funds festivals and major events and large celebrations. So I know for sure that there are other options within the city. If you are a nonprofit of the size of like the Algoma Fall Festival, that you are able to apply for streams of grants that way, or like lease out other opportunities and things like that. So my personal thing is I don't know how much of this 26,000 we should be providing to, massive festivals or large operations anyway. I don't know if 26,000 is a budget to be funding large projects. But that's a general comment, so I apologize.
No, this is all part of the process. I see Larry's hand, and then I'm going to jump in. Larry?
Yeah, whatever we do, we don't feel like it's going to be fair. And nobody's going to be satisfied. And I'm not even sure we can explain our predicament to them without getting political and stirring up a pot. One thing we could do is to kick the scores and the $26,000 and everything into the fall to our next application stream and not have a second application next year.
For the terms of this, for today, that's not possible. Like, we wouldn't be able to carry that over, but yes, that's conversation for the ACAP review process.
Are we able to say which ones need to happen right now and which ones we could possibly fund in the fall?
I defer to Alicia on that front.
I don't know. I mean, ultimately, everyone who isn't funded at this time, they're welcome to reapply for the fall. So typically, as we know, that process typically goes into the new year. And even if there are significant changes to that, it'll probably be in the early new year when that decision is made again. And I know that initially I wasn't part of the process at the time, but I know initially this was broken up into 2 intakes to help fund different organizations and different groups basically that were not able to plan their year from the beginning, or rather a year in advance, and as things come up. So it was to provide more access to funding more consistently. But again, the number here being 26,100.
So would you say the second round would be more for small project grants?
I mean, I couldn't say that. I think that'd have to be a group determination.
Yeah. Yeah. I do see a lot of hands. I just want to highlight the total requests under small project grants is 22,000. The total requests under the cultural diversity stream is 22,261 as well. But I would caution against saying, okay, we'll fund only the small projects, right? Because you have a lot of ones that are ranked lower. You wouldn't necessarily want it to be all of them. You'd probably want to raise your threshold in fairness, because otherwise, there would have been no point to the scoring, because we would have just said, okay, we'll approve anything that's a small project, right? One option is for us to pursue, but that we haven't done yet. I think we may want to consider, at the very least, I mean, there's 2 critical problems here. One is that the Musical Comedy Guild is requesting $40,000, and we don't have $40,000. So that sort of tips everything. If you take that out of the equation, not saying that we wouldn't fund it, but if we just like imagine that's not a barrier that we have, then it's a question of fairness between the remaining items. So I would suggest that we will have to increase our minimum threshold by at least up to 11, if not up to 12, to see what else is available. And we could potentially see what is remaining for such a large ask like the Musical Comedy Guilds, which is very highly ranked. Putting that out there for discussion. Alicia, and then Lee.
This is the right time to say this, but ultimately we talk about viability of projects if full funding isn't provided. But the reality is that these projects, these people are going to minimize their operations and move forward as best they can with whatever we can give them. I've spoken to enough groups throughout the time. I don't know that that's a reasonable way to take people off the docket, is to ask them basically, because the answer is always gonna be, we will figure it out. And that's kind of what these groups are good at and known for, unfortunately, unfortunately. And so they'll do their best to move forward, even in a limited capacity. Sorry, it's something I wanted to say earlier, but
Thanks. Lee, then Larry, then Brenna.
I have an odd maybe proposition. I just did some quick math, and out of the qualified applicants in terms of numbers, without moving the threshold, we have approximately 13 in small project and cultural diversity, which is like just over 50% of all of the applicants. I propose that we take the cultural diversity and small project grants and treat them as their own micro pool, then use their weights to award the money. And that's essentially, that would allocate approximately 13,000 towards big projects and then 13,000 towards these other 13 applicants. I mean, we could play with those numbers, but that was just some quick math that I did based off of the number of applicants. And maybe we agree right off the hop, we're not awarding 100% funding to anything. We say 50% funding at most. And then that would allow us to really get some more money to some more people and help some more organizations.
Just getting some clarification. So my totals based on the proportional distribution for small projects, I have it at 22,000, unless
yeah, I just went by the quantity of applicants. So like 13 out of the 24
like they would all
applicants were
get
either
1,000?
small project grants or cultural diversity grants. Just again, to try and remove that bias out of the picture of larger resource. It's just some very quick and dirty math to try and remove that out of the equation. And it was just an idea to kind of move forward and take personal thoughts out of it and just work with numbers.
Yeah. So would you suggest we combine cultural diversity and small project grants and sort of reserve a proportion of like half the pot and then distribute them proportionally according to that?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
and then
yeah.
Eliminate the threshold, whether it's 11, 11.5, 12, and then take what's left and divvy it up proportionately.
Okay, and I see Brenna with a thumbs up. Larry?
My concern, I mean, that's one way of doing it, but my concern is that it's not treating these applicants the same way that we treated other applicants last fall. And it's the same request, the same rules, the same forms, the same everything. You know, so maybe to be fair, we should just treat everybody the same and let the cards fall where they will. The problem is the problem is that we don't have enough money.
Right.
Larry, can I ask what was the process last year? Because I wasn't around and neither was Nyla. Like, I think just having that information would really help inform. I don't know if Rebecca was here either then. So if you could tell us what happened. Did you just raise the thresholds and then hand it out accordingly, or what did you do?
I can answer that. So that is roughly the case. However, we did actually have a minor exception for some of the small project grants. I can't remember whether that was a lower threshold or a certain reserved amount, but we did do that last time to sort of protect a portion of those small projects. It wasn't a large proportion, but it was a small proportion. But typically the process is that we keep raising the threshold until we hit our sort of fundable amount, or that combined with decreasing the share of or the proportion of the funding that they would receive. Usually those things have to happen at the same time in order for us to actually meet our funding, our pot that we have. Brenna?
If that's the bed we made, we got to stick with it. I'd like to see how that lays out, because I think the problem we all have is knowing that when that lays out, we might run into something because it's only 27 or
Well,
20.
and The other thing is that we have like one really highly ranked project that is requesting actually more than our entire budget, which hasn't happened before. So that's a bit unusual. But
That brings us back. Sorry it took me so long to get there, Larry, but maybe that does bring us back to let's contact the Musical Comedy Guild and say, do you actually, I mean, they're going to say they're going to actually need it, but I would almost proportionally, when we look at saying 50% overall, that one we'll have to cut down to more than that. Otherwise, there will be no budget left. That one will have to be 25% or something like that.
one thing we could also, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Promise them a chunk of the fall and say, hey, we can't give you all that right now because we only have 26, but we'll give you 15, and in the fall we'll give you part of that budget, like, because
It's Alicia, yeah.
Sorry, this is all really interesting, and I'm actually really glad to be part of this conversation as well, and then like super exciting. But I was gonna say that I think with the case of Musical Comedy Guild and having spoken with them about their application for the processes, they're well aware of the fact that our threshold is 26-1. They know that. But I think if they had put an incomplete budget in or numbers without what their actual needs are for the year, I think we'd be reaching out and asking them, why didn't you include that information? So I encourage them upfront to ask for it, knowing that that was beyond what would be possible and knowing that it would be scaled back, and having informed them that if they were successful, that it would not be that number. So they know ultimately. So I just want you to know that they know that I told them that they know.
One thing that we could do is essentially put a maximum amount that can be distributed to any applicant for this round, given the limited number that we have. Let's say $5,000. And then, you know, we'd continue the same process, but the ceiling would be 5,000. And which historically was the ceiling of the old cultural financial assistance program that the city used to have. It was sort of understood that you would be receiving grants in the neighborhood of $5,000. So that's an option, just floating it out there for people's consideration.
I would second that if you want to look at that.
Yeah.
As like a maximum this round, knowing that like that brings us down to a potential of at least 5. I don't think it's viable for us to really, we should have a rule on how many we could fund as well, and funding less than 5 doesn't really make sense. Right? So I would second that idea.
Yeah,
So do you want, go ahead.
I would combine that idea with a max of 5 or 50% of the applicant applied amount to essentially be able to reach that more than 5 number that we're hoping.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is rearrange this based on the highest to lowest score, and then get a tally of those top scores, assuming maximum 5,000. And then if they've requested below that, we'll keep it, is it proportional, or do you know, so similar to what we have here, where for small projects, say, right? If they've requested, they've got an 11.8 and we're suggesting potentially a 2,300 and some, right? We want to start there as to see. Okay, so I'll do that. Talk amongst yourselves.
I have a question, because I know that this could continue for a while, but I'm a little concerned at some point we'll lose quorum, and we've got some items 6.1, 6.2, and 6.3. Is it okay to run through those while you're doing the?
Please do.
That? Okay. All right. So if it's okay, we'll jump around a little bit and go to item 6.1, the ACAP process review subcommittee. We're looking for 2 volunteers essentially that well, actually, we could have more than 2 volunteers at this point, forgive me. But if there are people who are interested on this committee of being part of the ACAP review process, which is what we're currently looking at in real time, now would be a good time to let me know. We could pass a resolution here and go ahead and add people to a subcommittee and move forward. I see Brenna. Brenna, do you have any comments?
Yeah, I think I would be interested in throwing my name in to be a volunteer if everyone agrees.
Excellent. Something else I'll mention is Miranda has reached out and asked to be included as well as part of this process. Is there at this time, of course, like we can make the subcommittee here, I believe. I'm not sure that I'm allowed to do that or make pass the resolution. So we'll hang tight there, but I have Brenna and Miranda and anybody else. Please just make it known if you'd be interested in being part of this process. And we'll go back and we'll pass a resolution when Sean is prepared. Looking at 6.2, there's a public art task force. So what we did back in, I believe it was in March, was we passed a resolution asking for 4 members for a public art task force. It was Yasmina, Lee, Brenna, and Larry who had stepped forward. At this time, we need to actually separate those volunteers into 2 different groups. So we need to pass 2 different resolutions, items 6.2 and 6.3, to be part of different, we'll say, art and artist selection processes. And is there anybody who's interested in being part of the Northern Community Center Public Art Project? And forgive me for making this a little bit out of order. What it will be is ultimately, it's a task force where they'll work alongside the Director of Community Services, the Manager of Recreation and Culture, and myself, the Arts and Culture Coordinator. Again, 2 volunteers from the Cultural Vitality Committee to then to be part of this. So again, drawing from the pool that was established back in March, Lee and Brenna and Larry, where do you see yourselves falling in 6.2 and 6.3? Pall Mall Alley comes up in September. We usually open, we'll say early September and close by the end of September, and then we have deliberation through October. I had kind of put Yasmina's name down here for that because I think that's where her interests were indicated previously. If anybody else would like to volunteer of you 3 to be on either of these task forces, please let me know which one.
I'm happy to sit on either. As you know, Cases Music is really close to the Pall Mall, so I walk by it multiple times a week. But I'd be happy to sit on the Northern Community one as well, the Northern Community Center one as well, depending on where other people's interests lie.
And let me just speak a little bit further to that. Sorry, the Northern Community Center Public Art Project, we're calling for an Indigenous artist to bring forward a piece of art. The stipulations that they are connected to the area in some way, and ultimately, again, it'll be the Director of Community Services, Manager of Rec and Culture, and myself. It's a relatively smallish panel, and also, sorry, in addition to that, there'll also be representatives from SKG, and we're looking to open that up a little bit as well to make sure that there's appropriate consultation done with the community. So there's more to come, but at this time, we're looking for 2 volunteers from that smaller subcommittee that was established back in March. Brenna?
Yeah, I'm a West Ender and I have some experience in that stuff. So I think that I could be in that subcommittee. The Pall Mall one, only if you need me.
Okay.
Yeah. I would also be happy to be part of that Northern Community Center project.
Excellent, thank you. Larry, what are your thoughts on the Public Art Task Force for the Pall Mall Alley with the bulk of those activities taking place in October?
Well, I'll do whatever wherever I'm needed.
Excellent, thank you very much. Okay, so we'll wait for Sean when he's finished and we can read through the resolutions. The way that I currently have it written is for the ACAP review process subcommittee, Brenna and Miranda. Moving forward to 6.2, I have Lee and Brenna, and for 6.3, I currently have Yasmina and Larry. Skipping down to 8.1, some other opportunity for public art selection. So we have some correspondence here. So the upcoming Sault Ste. Marie Arts and Culture Festival, previously the Summer Moon Festival, is moving into September of 2024. It's happening September 20th, 21st, and possibly the 22nd. It's still in the planning stages. But ultimately what's happening is I'm part of that committee too, excuse me. Ultimately, it's a joint initiative through the City of Sault Ste. Marie, the Downtown Association, and the Local Immigration Partnership. And they're asking for, it says up to 2 volunteers from the Cultural Vitality Committee to express your interest through email to be part of an artist review panel in preparation for this upcoming event. Now, to my knowledge, the process there is there'll be, we have called for artists already. We've been able to determine who essentially we can afford to bring, ultimately from separate locations. And now we're looking from those applicants to see what type of art should be reflected within our community. So that'll happen. That's what will happen next. So this review committee will then review these artist applications. I think we're looking to bring it down to a solid 5 to 10 applicants, including local applicants. And then from there, we work with local building and business owners to match them with the right artist for them and for their space. So that's what's happening here. So if you're interested, you can contact me or you can contact the Downtown Association and express your interest that way. Again, like through their basic email, mine a.moore@cityssm.on.ca. Or again, if you're looking at the Downtown Association, their basic info email there as well, forgive me. And so, I'm just trying to pull that information right now. Forgive me for not having it ready to go.
Is that open to the public or just committee members?
At this time, just committee members, but I believe that there's a larger interest in bringing in community members as well at this point in the process. So if there's somebody who would like to be involved, they're welcome to reach out and to get involved, and we'll make sure that there's a place for them.
Awesome.
So I have some numbers. They are probably a little disappointing. But if we institute a cap of $5,000 and then that last project in the list has the amount subtracted that we'd be over budget, that would allow us to fund 6 projects to a maximum of $5,000. The final project, we'd have to fund at a rate of $4,667.69 to meet our $26,100. Thoughts? I see Brenna first, then Lee.
If we take the last $5,000 or the last $10,000 and put it on the small projects, is that possible? Because it seems like no matter what we do with the scores and whatever, it seems to be just large projects at the top.
Yeah, the only difference being 5.24, and then is 11 small? No, I think 11's events. Yeah. So yeah, that last 4,000 and some there, if we keep, yeah. So let me do a screenshot here so I don't lose all the work. And then,
Just in case, if you don't mind.
nope, no problem. So hold on. Oh, sorry, Lee, you were also going to, I guess before I do that, I should ask you what you were going to say.
Yeah, similar. I was gonna say it sounds harsh, but take that bottom 10K. And I would use at least the bottom 10K, if not the bottom 15, to look at the other 13 or 12, because the Sioux Potters Guild did make it in there. Small projects and community cultural diversity projects, because they didn't make any of those top lists either, which is concerning.
I'm going to copy and paste some of this into a new sheet. So that I don't lose it. Nuts. Okay. So just to let you know, it's not letting me do the undo function because I've moved something into a different sheet. So this is going to take longer than anticipated because I have to work off of the original that was sent to me, and I have to update the scores that were updated during the meeting.
Should we take 5 minutes while you do that?
Sounds good.
It's been quite a long time, so that's okay. Everyone please remain on the line. I'm just going to mute the microphone here.
Hello, everyone. I'm not going to be able to stay in this meeting much longer.
Me neither. But thanks for flagging that, Angela. Because
So
I think
I don't know if we need to be watching Sean do this, or if we're gonna like let him do this and then move on. I just, I've got maybe like 5 minutes left.
I can't do this in chair, so Alicia, you have to step in here.
No, I don't think there's anything further that I can do at this time. Before passing resolutions for items, 6.2 and 6.3. Going to say that, I'm not sure that I can chair, actually. As staff, if there's somebody else,
Right.
like I can.
Well, how about, we're not gonna get this done, so, can we
I'm
move
happy to
the-
move, I can move to adjourn. If that's what you guys are
do we
into.
need to move the motions on the appointments to the subcommittees first?
Do that quickly and then we'll move to adjourn. That's
Yeah,
okay.
okay, let's do that.
So I can read the resolution, but Sean, if it's okay with, I'll get you to call for voting.
Yep,
Item 6.1, the ACAP Process Review Subcommittee. Be it resolved that the following 2 volunteers be appointed to the subcommittee that will review the current Arts and Culture Assistance Program process, Brenna Thomas and Miranda Bouchard.
Yep,
mover,
aye.
moved by Angela, seconded by
Yep.
Lee. All those in favor, say
Aye.
aye or great, passed.
Excellent.
Second one,
Moving into 6.2, Public Art Task Force Northern Community Center Public Art Project. Be it resolved that the following 2 volunteers be appointed to the Northern Community Center Public Art Review Panel, along with the Director of Community Services, the Manager of Recreation and Culture, and the Arts and Culture Coordinator. First, Lee Rendell, and secondly, the Brenna Thomas.
mover,
Happy to move it.
moved by Angela, seconded by Lee. All those in favor, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Motion carried. And the third,
6.3, Public Art Task Force, Pall Mall Alley, September 2024. Be it resolved that the following 2 volunteers be appointed to the upcoming Pall Mall Alley Artist Review Panel, including the Manager of Recreation and Culture, the City Sign Technician, and the Arts and Culture Coordinator. We have Jasmina Jovanovic and Larry Whalen.
moved by Brenna, seconded by Lee. All those in favor, please raise your hand or
Aye.
indicate aye. Motion carries.
I'll be in touch about the next meeting date.
And we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Yep, happy to move it.
Moved by Angela, seconded by Lee. All those in favor, please raise your hand or indicate aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Have a great day, everybody. Great
Okay, thanks,
conversation.